Hello and good afternoon to all of our Be Awesome at FM. And this is a special one because it's a 2 podcast episode. So Paul and I are the hosts for the Be Awesome at Facility Management podcast. And we brought in a third person, a third host, because we're really going to beat up on today's guest. Brought in none other than Burke Jones, who I predicted a year ago would have one of the top, if not the top, Facility Management for Schools podcast within a couple of years, and he's well on his way. So, Burke, good afternoon to you, and thanks for taking the challenge and joining us here.
Hey, it's kind of the dream team. I had a good mentor, in Josh when I started my podcast. So it's been a lot of fun. School facilities and operations. We talked to other operations directors and then some trade partners. So I'm happy to join this with like the dream team on the screen right here.
Well, I don't think our guest is going to tell us how he came to inviting us, but you did an awesome post yesterday about imposter syndrome and having imposter syndrome and feeling like everybody on your podcast is smarter, more likable, and better looking than you. And I felt bad. So I know all you guys are smarter, better looking, and more likable than me. So I'm that guy. I'm the imposter in the room. With this cast of characters. So before we get to the guests, Paul, where the heck are you today?
I'm home. I'm in the ground level studio, which means all the grandchildren have gone off to school.
Beautiful.
And that way there I can live on the living level and not have to be banished to the attic.
Awesome. And this is live, and we're hitting numbers. People are popping in here like crazy. So
nice.
Put your questions in LinkedIn or YouTube. I'm gonna be tracking that. And now we're going to get to the man of the hour to put this together in less than 24 hours. It's none other than Turner USD, Kansas Director of Facilities and President, which was what we're going to get into, President of the KADPF, which he's going to give us what the acronym stands for and all that other good stuff. None other than Mr. Chris Crockett. Chris,
good to see you all. Thank you all very much for putting this together and for bringing it together so last minute. And I'm excited to see what you guys have.
Well, we talked about doing this a while back, and I think between the world getting crazy for all of us and your summer projects and facilities and schools, we just didn't get to it. And now we're less than a month. This is crunch time before your big conference, but we're going to talk about everything KADPF related. And for a piece of fact, Burke is also a director of facilities in a Kansas school district, Derby, doing awesome work there. He's been on our podcast before, so every once in a while I'll miss a bullet point because we've talked about it already. But Burke is in the trenches as well, and Paul's in the trenches. And how many different districts are you in right now with Mr. Retired Life?
All total about 5, but 2 of them are like as needed. So I'm just on retainer, and they call me when they need something.
Yeah.
And then a couple of mentoring gigs, which are kind of cool. I enjoy working with the younger facilities people because we seem to be struggling to get younger folks in to do our jobs. And then my 2 regulars in 2 towns of Boxford and Topsfield, 2 great historic towns in Massachusetts, on the north side of Massachusetts.
Before we get going, I mean, when you say as needed with a name like Paul, it's more needed. So, that's why I say enjoying retired life, working a couple full-time jobs. But that's what you guys have to look forward to, and hopefully a long time from now, because you guys are just getting started, Chris and Burke. So Chris, first and foremost, what is KADPF?
KADPF is the Kansas Association of Plant Facility Directors. So it is folks in K-12 education, it's folks in higher education, on the operational side of the facilities. So it could be anywhere from custodial supervisors, maintenance supervisors, and they don't even have to be supervisors. We have some people, I'm taking a team of about 10 probably, that's what I usually take. And it's everybody from, departmental supervisors to people in the trenches, just as a day-to-day custodian. So it's just a very diversified group of operational support for education.
Right on. And how long has it been around?
Since the mid-50s. So it was established back in the mid-50s by a group that they used to rotate around the state and I believe it was Salina, Wichita, and Topeka, that they would rotate their conference around so that people could not have to travel as far. For the past, gosh, I want to say 8 years, we've been locked into Topeka because it's really the only venue that can host what we do. There is a venue down in Wichita that we've started looking at to see if we can rotate it down there once in a while. But we've visited places out in Salina, Manhattan, and even further west, and there just isn't a hotel convention center that can accommodate the size that we've grown to be.
What is the size? How many people?
So we've got about 60 plus, around 62 vendors at the trade show, which is a pretty good sized trade show. And then our membership is usually around 100, typically about 50 different school districts involved. So school districts and higher education. We've got Butler Community College, Hutchinson Community College, Washburn University. So different levels, but all revolving around education.
Wow, that's great.
It's a great conference. So I started this job in 2019. Did not go that year. Trying to remember when I went. It was the first one after COVID. So 21 probably.
22, I think.
Okay. So went to 22. Missed last year because I had another commitment and I hated to miss it. But I was just really impressed with the diversity of the types of jobs people were doing that were in attendance. Just lots of good information shared there.
I apologize, Burke. It would have been 21 because this is 23. 22 would have been last year, and you did miss that one.
Yeah. So it was 21. We were still kind of wearing masks, I think, at that point.
Right. It's a blur.
Yeah. A good blur. It's all behind us.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Kansas is kind of an interesting state, and Burke and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, and Paul's going to probably make fun of my numbers and where I come from, but Kansas, I believe, is like 300 and just under 350 classified school districts, and it's like 500,000 students, give or take.
I think it's 283 school districts.
All right, so I was off by a bit there, Paul. Congratulations.
How about that?
They connected, but it's like less than 50 of the school districts represent over 50% of the student population. So you have a small percentage. You've got like 20% of your school districts that represent over 50% of your student population. So you're a state that has a lot of small rural districts that could really use, everybody can use professional development and help, but those smaller schools are definitely, those are ones that they're tough to get to, but it sounds like you got some of them that come to you. I mean, it sounds like you got a good mix from all different sizes and shapes. And before we go any further, Anthony, hello from New Jersey. Great to have you. Matt Oliver is back. Matt, New Hampshire. We were going to have to start a search party for that guy. He disappeared for a while. Yeah. He was like the #1 fan status for a bit. So welcome, guys. Hope back to school went smooth for you, Matt. But Chris and Burke, what's the layout of your school districts? School student size? Paul and I've been fortunate enough to visit you, Chris. But for the listeners, what's your school districts look like?
So we have, I'm in Derby, Kansas, which is basically a suburb of Wichita. What's unique about Derby is even though it touches Wichita, it feels like its own small town. Like we'll have 4,000 people at a football game. People tailgate before the games. I mean, it feels like its own town. So we have 9 elementaries, 2 middle schools, and 1 big high school of a couple thousand kids, just at the high school. So that's where we're at.
We have about 4,200 students district wide. We're outer skirts of Kansas City Metro. We've got 8 school buildings, 4 elementaries, an alternative high school, middle school, a 6th grade academy, and then our high school has just over 1,000 kids.
Paul, the floor at that high school, Paul, we still talk about it.
You were 100% right. That wax that we switched to this summer blew it away even more. They're beautiful.
We couldn't believe the time that the amount of time that you guys were able to go without having. I mean, that floor looked like it was just done. Your custodial and maintenance staff in the high school and all the schools that we went to, but the high school especially, that school shined. I mean, your curb appeal on that was wonderful.
It's a top-notch team. It really is.
And to go on the flip side, to have an old building that has that doubles as a haunted house occasionally. That boiler, Paul. We didn't show a picture of that boiler, but that was decorated and scary as all get up.
That was my favorite, down in the dungeon.
That's right. You get in the bowels, it's a different story. The bowels.
Yeah.
So can I touch real quick on something you said, Josh?
Yeah, open up to whatever you want.
So we have probably well over 100 school districts in Kansas where the superintendent wears all the hats. They may drive a bus in the morning and they may be mopping the floor at night. They're doing everything. They're working their tail off. Those are the people that should be coming to our conference. But, Burke and I and the larger school districts, we have teams of people. And it's great. It's a great conference for that. But you're not going to get the content that you get at KADPF at any other professional development conference in the state of Kansas. I've been to USA. I've been to a lot of the different conferences. You'll get professional development, but you will not get the trade department professional development that we offer. So,
and one of the things I find out when we go to a conference like that, it's really good therapy to talk to other people that do what we do or some parts of what we do, and to realize that you're not alone. And there's so many out there, and why live in that bubble and try to figure it all out yourself when someone else has built that wheel already. So let's network and get out there and share specs and share past best practices and things like that and things that worked and things that didn't. I mean, I think any conference like that is invaluable for anyone.
100%.
Yeah, I know when I came home last time, I was like on a high, here's all these other people that are doing exactly what I'm doing. I was brand new, coming from the private sector. And it was just really great to be in rooms full of people, of guys doing what I do.
Yep.
And let's step back about the association. You're a successful association doing amazing things, and you're all volunteers. Like there's nobody that their day job is KADPF. So
Right.
for what you're building and what you're expanding and growing on since the 50s is nothing short of extraordinary. Because you go across the river over to Missouri for Charlie Branham, which you're going to be there next month or later this month with us. They got an executive director. They've got one or two other people part-time helping out. And that's their job. So you're doing this all voluntarily. And when you talk about the superintendents and assistant superintendents, that's something that's hard for people outside of the Midwest to wrap their head around, Paul, right? I mean, we just got exposed to it last month when we were in Missouri. And that's something when you go to Missouri, Chris, you talk to Charlie more about how he embraces and gets people, because we were in, I think it was California, Paul, that the assistant soup said he was coming to the MSPMA conference. Like it was on his list, and it was set in stone that he was going to be there. But 100%, those assistant soups and superintendents, they're helping this. They're either the superintendent working on curriculum first and foremost, right? Kids education. Right. And then you add facilities, and it's not just facilities. Many of them are doing IT. Many of them are doing transportation. Many of them are doing food services. Some of them are driving the buses right now because of bus shortages. So even just to get away for 2 days and do what like Burke says is like, wow, I'm not the only one that's in this boat. I'm not on an island. There's lots of other islands like mine, and I get to compare notes. Just that peer-to-peer networking opportunity to just feel like you're not, to get that feeling out of you that you're not alone is
and in this day of cell phones, as I hold up my cell phone, and computers and email and text, they can all live without us for a couple of days. They can contact us. They might, we might be sitting in a class and learning, but 45 minutes later, we can return that phone call and we can get back to people. And if it's really flooding or burning, they'll get a hold of us.
And the value that 2 days brings to you personally and your district is you can't measure it. Just the interaction between like-minded people, let alone the new technologies you learn about, or the new strategies you learn about, or whatever it is. Bringing that back to your district is invaluable. I mean, you can't put a price on it.
Yeah.
It's 2 days.
Yep. Yeah. And we'll take a quick one. I don't want these to get out of the way, but Greg Christensen, new. I think he's a new listener of our podcast. I think he's a follower of yours, Burke, because he was on the LinkedIn post. I think got this all started. But he says hello, Greg, and Mr. Bobby Chavez from Assabet. He's on here too. Hello, Bobby. Got to talk to Bobby for a few minutes this morning, so glad to see you made the podcast, my friend. Throw some questions at us, but feel free to ask questions about anything. I don't talk politics, pizza, or religion. These guys might talk about that stuff, but we love to talk facilities and love to talk about the KADPF conference.
I want to know, Chris, what drives you to do this? Like we said, it's volunteer. You have a full-time job.
So I feel completely indebted to the organization because it is the reason I am where I am. I started in facilities back in 2009 at the University of Kansas on the housing side as a general repair technician. A position, I was living in Topeka at the time, commuting to Lawrence, which isn't that far of a drive, but in 2009, gas was like $5 a gallon. And the position opened up at a school district in Topeka that I actually went to, Auburn Washburn, went K through 12 there. A position opened up as a plumber. And so I went to my boss at KU and said, hey, I'm going to put in for this, just the gas savings alone is a $400 a month increase. What do you think? And he's like, oh, well, you know what? I know the director there through KADPF. I'll reach out to him and give you a good word. I said, I appreciate that. And ultimately, I landed the job, worked my way up through Auburn Washburn. And then Turner School District reached out to KADPF to ask if they could post this position on the job postings on the website. And at the time, I was the media coordinator for KADPF. I got involved with KADPF because it was the reason that I got to Auburn Washburn, and I thought it was a great organization. So we posted the job opening. I applied for it, and here I am. So KADPF is literally the reason I've grown throughout my industry, and I owe KADPF tremendously. So I'll do everything I can. That's that.
That's good.
And I got to tell you, Chris, only because I've gotten to get to know you over the last year, your leadership and your loyalty to your team is nothing short of amazing. And so the fact that all started with a KADPF reach out, and I mean, if you go to Chris's shop, which we were very fortunate. They knew we were coming ahead of time, but I don't think it was just because we were coming. They had a team barbecue luncheon, had great discussions, great camaraderie with the team. You're doing a great service and great work, and that I'm sure that trickles to your KADPF commitment, especially where it's volunteer. You're volunteering your time, so that's pretty important. So it looks like we got questions. For some reason, some of the stuff's coming in private. But first, Aubrey Kirkpatrick, hope you hear this before you leave. We got Canada in the house, Paul. I must have heard about more Paul being on here.
How about that? Yeah.
Yeah, Aubrey Kirkpatrick. Man, he showcased. If you're not following Aubrey Kirkpatrick in Moncton, New Brunswick, he is a rock star, and his team are amazing. And he does a phenomenal job of showcasing and talking about his operations team as often as he can. He showed a bunch of pictures of their buildings being reopened. So, and we've got a question. I'm just able to pull it up. It's Greg Christensen, and his question is, hi guys, what do each of you think is the best way to solve the skilled trades gap, lack of people in the space? That's I think that's a question. I think that's a question we talk about pretty often, and the crystal ball is getting spun again. So we'll let the guest with the most, and then the hosts with the most go. So Chris, why don't you give your best shot at that?
How do we fill the gap? Is that the question?
Yeah.
How do you best way to solve the skilled trades gap?
Oh, skilled trades.
Yeah.
I haven't got to that gap yet. I'm still very blessed with everybody that I was here when I came on board. But I am getting ready to go into those challenges. I have filled one position since I got here, and it was with an HVAC person. And the way that we approached it was we posted it down at the local trade shop. And then my guys are down there all the time getting parts, and they bumped into somebody that wasn't super happy where they were. And we got very blessed that they came on board, and they've done a great job. But it is scary. As I mentioned, in 2010, I was a plumber. and plumbers nowadays, it's not easy to come by. So I don't have the crystal ball on that one. I don't know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know I've only had to hire one since I started, and it was an HVAC guy. We picked up a young guy that had been doing some residential and light commercial for a couple of years. And in 1 month, he moved cities, got a new job, and had a baby.
Wow.
So,
Oh, wow.
That's some life changes.
but he's worked out great. I mean, I think he was looking for a change and more of like a little bit more controllable work hours. And I mean, I think we offer some unique things at schools that you can't get if you're out running service calls, with a private company.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what we sold to him. The other thing we've done is we have a lot of high school kids that are interested in the trades. And we worked with our insurance carrier, and they can actually be covered under our policy now. I don't know that we actually changed anything. I think we just asked the question, and they're like, yeah, if they're shadowing your guys, then they're covered under your policy, which is a good thing to know. So working with the assistant superintendent of curriculum, we're actually going to start offering that out to some people at our high school level that, hey, come shadow our plumber for a day, come shadow the HVAC guys, run some calls with them, see what's going on. And I'll report back on how that goes as we get there, but I'm excited about that. And our guys are excited about it. They think it'd just be awesome to have, high school kid in tow for a day and showing them what the job's all about.
Yeah, I think that's great. That question it wasn't a plant, kind of fell in my lap here, because for those that are going to Missouri in a few weeks, one of the subjects that I'm taking on and speaking on is, we title it "Working with the Entitled," or are we? Yeah. So Ken Wirtz and I, we've been traveling around and talking and trying to fill this gap of employment that we have since COVID, really. And all we heard was these kids these days, they don't want to work. These millennials, that they're no good, they're lazy. These Gen X's, they've gone back to live with their parents and they don't want to. But you know what? Unemployment's at 3.8.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's the lowest it's been. So that ain't it. They might not want to do our jobs or the custodial jobs, but the younger generation wants to work.
Yes.
Let's get that out there. So then how do we, transfer them into the trades and what we do? I know in one of the communities, I hired for facilities manager in 3 communities and working as a consultant. And I can tell you, over the 4 years that I did that, I had the same 4 applicants that put in from town to town.
Yep.
And none of them were qualified. Those 4 weren't qualified. I had other applicants, but these 4 gentlemen kept showing up. Every time they turned their Zoom screen on for an interview, they must have said, "Oh my God, not him again." He's everywhere. I'll never get the job.
Well, you are more Paul. So
yeah, right. And what I did was, in the last community I worked in, Dover, Sherborne, Mass, I went to a whole plethora of applicants, and pushed them aside, paper cut, put them in the barrel. And we got a call from a neighboring town, and they said to us, the business manager said, 2 years ago, I hired a facilities director from BJ's. Now, BJ's is a large box store that we have here. I'm not sure if they've made it out that way, but it's a big retail box store. And Costco and Sam's and those type of places. And this finance director from the school said, this guy transitioned from the box store facilities director to the school's facility director without a problem. Yeah. And as I'm reading his email, I'm reaching into the barrel, and I pulled out the resume for a facilities director from BJ's and gave him a call. He came in, he interviewed, and that was 3 years ago. He's working in the job. I recently just left there as a mentor for him. 2 months ago. So we got to think out of that realm of, kids coming in from school or people coming in working from another school. We got to do something. There's a gap. There's definitely a gap.
So
since I've had time to process, can I jump back 1 second?
Look at this guy jumping all over the place.
No.
I'm going to move your pane to the top left.
I've had time to process the question now. So one thing that I'm doing, because my entire maintenance department is going to turn over in the next 5 years. Everybody's getting ready to retire. So I'm trying to find people on my team that I think can do the job, and start mentoring, giving them mentors to work their way to that department. And when the time comes, hopefully they're ready. It could mean a $10 an hour increase for some of those folks. So just trying to keep it internal and promote from within.
Don't you think, like, for people as, let's say, a supervisor level or a leadership level, I mean, like a director level position or a supervisory position, I mean, I'm just a believer that a lot of this we can learn on the job if we're not afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
And if you can lead and you like people, that's 90% of it. I hired a supervisor of maintenance and custodial, didn't know anything about either one of those things, but he loves people and he's a great leader. And, he just hit the ground running, and the department's flourishing under his leadership. He asks lots of questions like, what's a, VRF? What's a air handling unit? But he relies on our people, our guys out there in the trenches to educate him and help give him the right information he needs to make decisions. So I think a lot of it can be learned on the job.
Yeah. And recruiting the high school students, bringing them in, seems to be getting some traction here as I'm reading the comments.
Yeah, and we got so a couple things, because I'm going to round out the fourth here, because you guys hit all the points, so you made my answer very easy. First, I'm going to circle back with the responses, which Bobby Shavs, which, first of all, their school is amazing. I've been working with them for almost 20 years. It's a Voc Tech school. Oh, there you go. My phone's ringing. I thought I turned it off there. Scared the life out of me. But he says, I may be a bit biased working at a trade school, but vocational skilled trades for the high school kids. Phenomenal program. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit. And he's absolutely right. This is a 450,000 square foot campus setting, 1,200 kids, and they're teaching these kids are coming out. There's 13 or 14 different trades that they can learn, and they come out of high school. Many of them already done with their apprenticeship, or they're going into their apprenticeship, and they can be plumbers, electricians, contractors, wrench turners, making six figures in little to no time. So absolutely, there needs to be more Voc Tech, if not Voc Tech programs. And then Greg said that's an ideal approach. Burke. I love that high school students get to shadow and experience those roles. Absolutely, that I'm gonna hit that. Aubrey says we have the best opportunity. Leave it to Aubrey. We have the best opportunity as school districts. We have them for 12 to 13 years. We can lead them to our school professions. What a great way to recruit. We have the natural resources daily. And then it looks like Greg said, Chris just hit my second question. How concerning is the risk of loss of tribal knowledge with folks retiring or turning over? Man, I'm going to hit all these points. And then Matt Oliver. Welcome back, Matt, coming in like a firecracker. Love it. We have filled several full-time jobs with high school graduates that work for us during the school year of students. This question, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but I did a quick stalking of you. It's the first time we've seen you on the podcast here. It looks like that you cover just about all areas of facility management and all industries. And so I think your question may or may not have been posed to the skilled labor gap, which is the 3 million plus open skilled labor positions in the country. We don't know how to fix that. Our response is going to be solely on education. And that's where my experience comes in, and all of our experiences come in. And so my answer is a couple-fold. The first is when the question was asked, we put Chris on the spotlight for the first time, he said he didn't have that problem. So the first response would be, I'd be going to where the president of an association is that has a school district that doesn't have that problem, and I'd hold on to him real tight and learn what his secret sauce is. Because that is, you go places, you go to Milwaukee, Wisconsin with John Stangler. He doesn't have that problem. You go to Burke Jones in Derby, Kansas. He doesn't have that problem. Paul Anastasi, when he was in Newton Public Schools, building the most expensive high school in the country at the time, he didn't really have that problem. He had good staff, and it wasn't a whole bunch of it wasn't because everybody was getting pools and bunches of money. It was because the leadership was doing a good job. They understood their team's why, and they delivered the message properly to them. As far as programs, we need to flip the script, and I have this conversation because I'm a millennial, proud to say it. And when I was growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, in junior high school and high school, you learned a skilled trade because you couldn't make it in high school and you weren't going on to college. That was the mindset. That's where the gap came from. So first we have to understand where the gaps came from, why they have them, and then what do we have to build off of them. And one of the things in education is we've got 50% of our facility professionals in all aspects of the role are retiring in the next 5 to 7 years. That's 50%. They're retiring. They don't need to be retired. And that's the first thing that I tell people to look at. I have a company, K-12 Pros, full disclosure. I'm always transparent about everything and where I profit from. Paul's an employee of mine. He's a contractor. He goes out. He works in some of these districts. I look forward to closing K-12 Pros. But K-12 Pro's entire idea is to bring retired facility professionals back into the workforce on their terms because there's such a gap and such a need. So I think one of the things we need to do is we need to tell people that age is just a number. Dave Pettit, I used as an example last week in Missouri. He could have retired 8 years ago. Burke, I think you probably could have retired. I mean, you were close to retirement. You were in the private sector and you came in public sector. People go, what are you thinking? Right? But, people don't need to retire because of a number as long as they're still doing good work. And we need to tell people that. I think that the system does have some issues with regards to schools with, there comes a time with pensions and everything else where it's almost counterproductive to stay employed because you've been there long enough. You can get your full pension. You got all this stuff. But I think we need to figure out we need to look at all the places where things are broken. I think where we're trying to find skilled labor positions, we can't post it in Indeed. Like every school I talk to, I say, what are you doing to find skilled team members or facility professionals? Well, we put in Indeed, we do this, we do that. No, you got to go to your community. You got to go to your local church. Your local church almost guaranteed has a part-time custodial and facility person. They might want another job. They might want more work. Maybe they want to come out of retirement. So we need to be looking in the different places, and we can't, as Paul was kind of saying, we can't stereotype. If we look at every generation is the worst generation, right? The next generation.
Right. And those headlines were the same year after year. And I told you, Josh, one of the best employees I ever hired, he's still working there. This was 12 years later, was my Uber driver driving me to Fenway Park to a Red Sox game.
Yep.
He picked me up at the house. We're driving in. His car was immaculate. Yep. He was very well kept himself. Mm-hmm. We had great conversation, and my phone rang, and it was the HVAC company telling me they were fixing the rooftop unit at Newton North High School. And he said, he says, you work in the schools. He said, I'd love to get a job like that with benefits. Yep. I said, well, you know what? From here to Fenway on a game night is probably a 20-minute ride, 25-minute ride. I said, this was your interview. Show up at my office Monday morning and fill out an application. I said, You're hired. He's still there 12 years later.
Oh, that's awesome.
Works his tail off.
The younger folks that are coming into the position, many of them don't understand that. And I think that's one of the reasons why, Paul, you were so successful in your role, was you sat down with your team and you told them what public sector employment looked like from a pension standpoint for retirement, the long game, right? This isn't a short game that you're playing. I tell you all the time, given the opportunity all over again, I'm almost 50 years old. I should have probably had someone like Paul sit down with me and go, hey, listen, you put an honest 30 in, you work hard, you'll make an honest living, you'll make a difference in your community. You're going to have thousands, if not tens of thousands of kids that you have the opportunity to impact and make a difference in their life by the work that you do. Like how many occupations is there actually a result that you can actually see that you can't put a value on? Like how powerful and what kind of a result is it to see little Johnny and Sally that came to you in kindergarten 12 years, 13 years later, going up on stage and getting a diploma and being a fully grown active, participating, positive person in the community.
Yeah.
You
Right.
touch that. You touch that.
Best day in the school year right there is graduation day. Best
The
day in the school year.
two best days. The kindergarten kids coming in
Yeah.
and seeing them, and 12 years later seeing them graduate.
Yeah.
Every employee should be in that graduation every year, because that's why you do it. That's what the result is. And we need to start getting away from a public sector side, focusing on money.
And these things that we're talking about, getting back to Chris's original subject, is it happens at those conferences, at those meetings, at the monthly meetings, at the yearly conferences, where we all get together and say, how do we fill this gap? You might not have it in one side of Kentucky when you have it at the other. But we all need to be together on it. And
I just gave Chris a class for next year, which is, why do my people stay?
There you go.
And that's we don't talk about that. We talk about why our people leave, or why we think our people leave, but we never talk about why our people stay. Why are people loyal to us? Why do people stick around? Why do they have the passion? Part of it is, Chris, and I've been to thousands of schools, so if I'm lying on this or I'm missing it, but I'm pretty sure in your shop you've got your mission, vision, and values, or the mission of the facilities department, right? It's a big board.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure I took a picture. Yeah. My brain is in a mysterious place, Paul.
I was concentrating on the barbecue. Sorry.
I love the barbecue too, but I was just blown away because it had it there, and they have this big screen that they can put whatever they want on. But they let their team know every day by that board what their mission is, why they're there, and it's not to give kids a great education. It's to give kids a great environment, to be kids, to grow into adults, to feel safe, wanted, and loved. And that comes with healthy buildings. Yeah. That's what you guys do.
And if you ask my people, they 100% understand that. Like, it's very fun to talk to them about that side of the job and how they see a direct connection between what they do every day and our kids learning and having fun.
Yeah.
So, and it always amazes people when they come and talk to our custodians or talk to our maintenance guys, like other people in the district, and they're just amazed that, all of my people see the impact and what it does to students when their building's comfortable, clean, and safe.
Yeah.
And it's just the coolest part of the job, I think.
Yeah, no. And again, that being able to share that, I think that there's more of that. Paul and I have been talking the last 2 weeks. I've been in this industry for 27 years. I know it doesn't look like it, but I've been working with schools for 27 years. In professional development, I've provided speaking for over 15 years. And this last 2 months specifically, I have never seen more operations departments that want me to help them and their staff with customer service. Outside of pushing brooms and turning wrenches, they want their people to be better at being people, right? And even I always laugh. I always say your third shift custodians, when they get hired, they don't take the job because they're people. Brooms and auto scrubbers don't talk back in the middle of the night. The halls are empty. But you get one of those third shift custodians in a school specifically that leaves at 8 or 8:30 in the morning when the kids are coming in after being there a couple of years. They'll tell you their greatest gift that they've received is a kid saying thank you as they're going home, as that custodian's going home and go to sleep. That's that thank you. You can't put a price on, and sharing that mission and what's important. We've gone way off the rails, and I love it, and I'm glad. and this is okay, because we want more questions and more other stuff. But Chris, I got a couple of key questions for you. If you had a crystal ball right now, where would you envision, or where would you like to see KADPF? We're going to have Chris back in 3 years. Where are you? Where's the organization? What would you love to see happen or expand? Awesome.
After next year, I won't be on the board anymore, but I can easily see the organization doubling in the next couple of years. We had to turn too many vendors away this year because we ran out of trade show space. So we need to find a bigger venue. And there's spaces at the hotel we can do that, at the convention center. So I don't know that it'll move locations. It's very possible. But we need to expand our trade show space. and we need to have larger rooms to collaborate in and do our breakouts. So I can easily see us doubling in the next couple of years, very easily. There's a couple of things in the works that have just recently came up. In fact, there's a meeting tomorrow on it, but I can easily see it doubling.
Mm-hmm. And do you find that potential growth scares some of your board members? And because I know we went through it in Massachusetts, sure, and it was a scary time for us.
They'll tell you that it doesn't, but I can tell you that it probably does.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for being a smaller, tighter knit organization than being a massive network. Yeah. And it is scary. It's scary to me. We currently handle everything in-house: registration from as far as signing up to handing out lanyards and setting up the trade show ourselves. It's a lot of work. And Tricia Burke-Freund does all that work. She's out of Manhattan. She does all of the trade shows, all of the conference stuff. And it's a lot of work. And if she ever decides not to do it, we're going to be in a pickle. But it's scary.
It's unbelievable. When I started with the Mass Facilities Group, we were, going to Cape Cod every year for our conference. And we were maybe 12 to 16 guys hanging around in a hotel room ordering Domino's pizza. That was our big meal. And now here we are 20 years later, and we're hiring out the DCU Center in Worcester, Massachusetts that hosts NHL events and full basketball and entertainment, and we're taking over downtown Worcester because we were right where you are. We need a bigger venue. We had more vendors that needed space, and the vendors are willing to come in and pay. And that's what the membership has to understand too. We had a big, in the early days, we had this big thing where it was vendors against the members. And it can't be that way. They're partners. Oh,
100% partner. Yeah. We started a scholarship fund back in I believe it was 92. And that scholarship fund started with $1,000. And we gave out, a scholarship each year for $1,000. In the last 5 years, each year, we have given out over $30,000 in scholarships. Last year, we gave out 10 $3,000 scholarships to either higher education or technical education. So it doesn't have to be to a university or a junior college. It can be a trade school. I believe we did 8 higher education and 2 trade school, or 6 higher education and 4 trade school. I don't recall the exact numbers, but in order to be eligible for that scholarship, you have to be the child of a graduating senior and the child of someone that works for educational services on the operational side. So food service, transportation, custodial, maintenance. Your parent has to be one of those tradespeople for you to be eligible.
Wow, that's great.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we go, it sounds like Greg might be having to jump off. He was asking if this is going to be recorded. It is. All our podcasts are recorded. Most are live. And this one will actually be on both the Be Ultimate FM podcast and the Brooks School Facilities and Operations podcast. So yes, and Greg, if that means you are jumping off, thanks for your questions. We appreciate that, as always, any outside participation. But that's, Chris, that kind of leads me, because I get a feeling that this is some of what you're trying to leave as a legacy, which is what Paul hit on the head, which is you want to have a strategic plan, but you also need to have a contingency plan if Tricia decides to leave. And I'm guessing that's Manhattan, Kansas, and not Manhattan, New York.
Correct.
You guys in California, Missouri, Manhattan, Kansas, I got to keep up with all this.
It's actually known as the Little Apple.
Oh, okay. Of course it is. Of course it is. But yeah, I think that if I'm jumping to conclusions, but I'm guessing you're saying that you're going to be no longer on the board after next year. I think that you've done a lot of work. I think that you're setting your team up to that next step, which is your strategic vision, and coupling that with, making sure that, hey, if this happens, then we do this. If this person stops doing this, then we do this, and we got to think about that. And that's big. I do consulting for a couple of associations, and one has gone through explosive growth. I mean, they went from basically no money to a lot of money, and it's not all about money, but money does enable you to do things like not have your board work a registration table, maybe pay for someone to do that so your board can get the full experience of the event, and looking at other things. So, but is there other things that are in your legacy that you want to? You're living your legacy right now, but is there anything else you want to leave for a legacy with the association?
My biggest thing is just to make sure that the organization never folds, making sure that it lives on well beyond my years.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I think that I think your keynote speaker this year is going to ensure that it never folds, because he's bringing an audience.
Right.
I heard he's really awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Here it comes, folks. Get ready.
Hey,
I just want to be awesome.
Yeah, every once in a while, I got to be able to throw out a little shameless plug. I mean, come on, if I don't throw out a shameless plug, what good is it? I mean,
Yeah.
I just said that I'm with a group of people that are smarter, more likable, and arguably better looking than me. So I had to get something for myself. Wasn't going to hold out for you guys to do it.
So are you going to tell everybody who the keynote speaker is?
Oh yeah, it's this guy. His name's Joshua Peach. If you want to talk about me, you can. That's always great. My mom always likes it when other people talk nice about me. She's tired of hearing me talk about myself.
You know what? So I will talk about you if that's all right. So right at a year ago, Josh, I don't know if you remember that or not, but you and I met at MSPMA down at the welcoming social hour, I think it was.
Yep.
And we stood there and talked I was standing there talking to Charlie Graham, and I was telling Charlie and Kyle Gorell what I was trying to do with the organization and my vision. And you came walking across, and Charlie said, "Perfect timing. This is the guy you need to meet." And he introduced the two of us, and we stood there talking for about an hour.
Yep.
And we haven't stopped. I mean, we've been to Key West together since then. And it's amazing what we've done in the last year. It truly is. Yep. And for you to be our keynote speaker this year is incredibly exciting. And I can't wait to see what you have to say.
Yeah, no, I love all the events that I get to be a speaker at, but there's a real special place for me where I get to be a part of the year, right? The discussion throughout the year, and enables me to get to know the audience a little bit better, their pain points and all the things that are going on, all the good things. Because we're talking about a whole bunch of good stuff. I don't like to call my keynotes. I like to call them celebrations. And when this opportunity came along, man, it has been great. I think it's going to be a phenomenal event. I'm just have such an amazing honor to be that speaker for you guys to make sure that your teams and your members know to live their legacy, which is important. You can't leave a legacy if you don't live one. And we're gonna have a lot of fun. And More Paul isn't coming. Sadly, More Paul is staying home for this one. So we've recruited in Fast Eddie Senadella, and wait till you go. Fast Eddie. He's coming in hot and heavy. So
he was actually my recruit to be president of the Mass organization, as I was the outgoing president.
Yeah,
so
he's
not one of us. One of those guys that has the passion for running the organization and just wants to help.
Yeah, he's got 30 plus years under his belt. He started in the private sector, if I remember correctly, Paul. Started in private sector, getting into schools, close out his career. He's mentoring, doing some mentorship now, and gonna be exciting to bring another guy from Massachusetts out to Kansas. So we're gonna have a lot of fun.
But you guys, I know you've heard Josh speak before, but you'll realize that it's always something different. I mean, his brain is really, for me, a confusing place, but it works for him. And to see him, he'll sit in a room. We'll get to some of these events an hour ahead of time. When we were in California and in Missouri, Missouri, and sat and watched the opening speakers and the superintendent and the little groups of tables, and then to take that in an instant and bring it into the other room and feed it into what he's speaking about. It's always fresh. Yeah. He does that, and then something that a lot of people won't do is open up their personal life to a public speaking forum. And people will hear about his grandmother, his children, his fiance, and all of their life's experiences living with his brain.
My first colonoscopy.
The first
There you go.
I couldn't wait for that one to be done so that you could add that to your repertoire.
I talked to Chris about that yesterday. I had no shame in my game. I'm doing a podcast to remove the stigma about colonoscopies on my Be Awesome podcast tomorrow. So stand by.
Well, now, you're really giving your age away now, Josh, if that was your first colonoscopy.
45, man. They changed it. So when I turned 45,
they lowered the bar.
When I was turned 45, my doctor said currently the guidance is 50. I went in this summer at 48, and he said the guidance is shifted back to 45, and I suggested to you. And I'm going to tell the story, so you have to listen to the Be Awesome podcast. But I went and I got it. They found some stuff. 2 days ago, my anxiety was lifted, and I'm a clean bill of health. No cancer on me, and that's that's a scary thing when that's a possibility when it's looking at you in the face. So
and the true sign of a rookie in that department is Josh had planned on coming with me to the Red Sox game the night before the procedure. And I said, that's not going to work. Amy actually, that's not going to work, Josh.
Yeah.
Fenway Park is a beautiful place, but it's not some place you want to be prepping for a colonoscopy.
No.
Yeah. So it would have been.
Well,
I would have had to reschedule. When I did ask the question, what would have happened if I went to the Sox game last night? And they said, yeah, you would have most likely had to reschedule by the looks of you. You would have indulged in things you shouldn't have, or you would have been not in a good place. So, but no, Paul, thank you. You know, Paul's been with me. Paul's been with me. It's gonna be 20 years next May, and he's seen me at my best. He's seen me at my worst, and he's the only person outside of my blood family, and most of my blood family doesn't put up with me as much as Paul does. And that means a lot, Paul. You're a pretty special guy, and the stuff that you notice and catch. And my brain, you think my brain is confusing to you? Just imagine being me in my brain. It's even worse, doubly bad.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, we know that the registrations are going to skyrocket now that people know Josh is going to be there.
that was the whole plan, Bert.
Yeah, but as a guy who's going to be there, I want some inside scoop. Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Tell me more about what we have to look forward to the first
call.
weekend of October.
Tell us what's
Are
happening.
you talking? That was.
I'm talking to you, Chris. I'm talking to you.
Sorry. I thought you were asking Josh.
No, that's all right.
What? Okay, so I am so excited about this year's conference. I truly think it's going to be a dynamic event, something we've never done before. So we expanded, as I mentioned last year, I mentioned that we need bigger spaces to meet. Last year, our breakout sessions were standing room only, literally, and which is a wonderful problem to have. So this year we've expanded to another room. So we're offering 3 breakout sessions at the same time. So you've got a wider selection. And there's a whole, I think, 12 more presentations because of that. So we're offering for the first time like over 25 different breakout sessions. There's so many different lessons you could get at this conference. It's insane. Also, for the first time ever, to my knowledge, I invited. So we're right there in Topeka. That's where everybody involved in the state level of education is at. So I invited in the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Randy Watson. He's going to come speak to us over lunch and share a few kind words, hopefully. And then my former superintendent, who is now a Kansas Senator, Dr. Brenda Dietrich, is going to join us for lunch as well on that Monday and share a few words of encouragement. So I'm incredibly excited, not to mention that our social hour Sunday night is the Chiefs versus Jets. Nobody has mentioned it. Today's the kickoff to the NFL. Hopefully,
I'm wearing my green Jets hat today, right? Look at that.
Good green Jets. It's the Chiefs day. But yeah, no. So I'm incredibly excited about everything we have going this year, and I really think it's going to be. I think we're going to blow the doors off the place.
Yeah, I looked through the lineup of the breakout sessions, and I'm like, man, I want to go to like all 3 every time.
It's
I mean,
tough.
there's really good information I think that's being shared, and
it was really tough to schedule them all because they're all so interesting. And I look at it like you. I think, well, if I had this choice in these 3, which one would I want to go to? And there's not a one that I wouldn't want to attend. So
yeah,
it was tough.
Yeah, no,
So-
I saw a lot of the class sessions that I'm looking to. I was just going to pull up some of the session samples because it is the schedule is. I mean, it's chock full of. First of all, I'm going to give a shout out. I just saw the title of it. Then I saw the presenter, and I'm like locked and loaded. You got Kyle Gorell coming across the river.
Yep.
Lee Summit. Kyle is a bright guy. Have had him on my Show Me Mo podcast. But why are learning environments changing? You absolutely want to sit in on that. Charlie and Lisa Martin, benefits of cooperative purchasing and tips. Charlie's been on my podcast. He's amazing. Updates to annual inspections, on-call construction services, behind the build with DLR. I've had Rachel and their team on the podcast. They're phenomenal. You get some, just roof membranes, warranties, and maintenance. I tell you something, I know nothing about that. I'd love to
I don't either. That's why I need to sit in it.
Yeah, that's like sitting in the classes that y'all know, everything about's no good. I mean, there's stuff in this, and again, been doing this forever. Active threat response for schools when a lockdown fails. You always need to have sessions like that, not just when something happens, to be prepared. So phenomenal classes. Now, the only one I have a question on is that I'm going to sit on only because I want to ask this. There's a class, tennis court renovation and repair solutions. Does that go for pickleball courts too? Because pickleball is taking over. Pickleball is the #1 fastest growing sport in history right now. And I don't know if it's going on in Kansas. The town I live in has gone from 0 pickleball courts like 3 years ago to I think we have 27. We're putting them everywhere. And that's going to be something, the discussion piece of, do you convert tennis courts into pickleball courts? I got a whole new myriad of questions about that. So I'll be in there with my notebook.
It's not a high school sport yet. That's the problem.
Yeah.
A couple of local guys here that recently invested, from what I hear, millions of dollars into pickleball, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, have started some type of pickleball organization that's supposed to be exploding. And it is. It's taken over.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Tom Brady bought a team.
I was going to say, we're not going to do the Brady Mahomes talk, are we?
Oh, no. Mahomes is clearly
that was our Uber ride Josh and I had when we were in Kansas.
Tom who?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Next podcast, we'll just bring up stat comparisons.
So, Josh, if you don't mind me sharing, where you were reading all that information on the conference is at www.kadpf.org. Go click on the conference tab, scroll down, and you'll see the entire list of all the breakouts and all the events.
Yeah, we'll put all the links on all of the we'll put all of the links for registration, more information, how to get a hold of you. Yeah, I guess that's a question. How do people get a hold of you if they have questions, Chris? What's the best way to get a hold of you? You're on LinkedIn. I know that.
I am. So my desk number is 913-288-3721. I'm also very responsive to email, and my email is crockettc@turnerusd202.org. And feel free to put both of those up as well, Josh.
Yep. Awesome.
Hey, I got a couple things. So let's talk about some of the events, because the thing I like most about this conference is there is not a golf tournament. There is something much more fun on Sunday. And then I see we have another thing about cornhole. So talk about those two things a little bit.
So we do a sporting event on Sundays, and it's typically a clay pigeon shoot, so a trap shoot. Because of that, we also raffle off a few different shotguns throughout the event. But that's been our staple for years, and everybody loves it. It's always maxed out. I think that event maxes out at 66, and that is because there's 11 teams of 6. And there's, I want to say, 10 different stations that you go around to, maybe 12. So you go from station to station, and the clays get thrown at you a different way. So sometimes they're like ducks, and they come in overhead. Sometimes they're rabbits, and they bounce across the ground. But it's a fun event. We always do a chili feed at that. This year, we're doing a live demonstration from a company called Safe Haven. If you haven't seen that demonstration, it's phenomenal. You can't believe it until you see it. But it's their window film, and they do we'll shoot it with a couple of 9mm 45s and show you how well it defends against ballistics. And then the cornhole tournament, is Monday afternoon between the trade show and the banquet dinner. We throw in a cornhole tournament, and that's a lot of fun. Everybody kind of closes down their booths and watches and cheers, and the bar's open. It's a good time.
And just so you're aware, we're sending a ringer from Massachusetts.
It ain't me.
Shoot.
Fast Eddie's going to need to be on one of those teams, because if there's two guys that I got for these, it's Paul and Eddie. And when I called Fast Eddie for recruitment for this event, it was a Sunday, and he was just coming back from doing his skeet shooting, so he's well ready for this. And,
sounds good. He can be on my team.
Yeah.
There you go. Grab him if you can.
Yeah.
So I guess my other question is, and this probably is like would work in any organization, but like if people want to get more involved, like with KADPF or any of their state organizations, like what's the best way to do that? Like, do you just raise your hand and man, you're sucked up like that, or make eye contact with somebody at the wrong time? How do you do it?
So last year was the first time in many, many years that we didn't have to beg someone to join the board. Last year we had more people interested to join the board than we did positions open. So a few people weren't able to get in that hopefully get in this year. But the best thing to do, so we have our Sunday events, which are more social than anything. And then Monday is really the big day. Monday's the big breakout sessions in the morning with the fire marshal and all of that. And then the trade show, and then the banquet dinner with Mr. Peach delivering the keynote there about 6 o'clock that evening. And then Tuesday, we have more breakout sessions, and then we wrap up with our general business meeting. And the general business meeting is when you have the opportunity to join the board. And those conversations start, that Sunday and Monday, and if people are interested, by Tuesday afternoon, their name's on the ballot. And we hold a vote among the contingency there right at the business meeting, and that's when the board is decided for the next year.
All right, very cool.
I started out on the board as a general elect, so I didn't really have a position. I was just on the board. The following year, I rolled into the media coordinator spot and held that until last year. So I was and then I was voted in as the vice president elect 3 years ago, and that's a 4-year deal. So you become vice president elect, then vice president, then you have your presidency and past presidency, and then you're done.
Yeah.
So if everything goes right, after next year, I'll be a free man. But it is. It's been incredibly valuable to me personally and professionally.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I missed the meeting, and when they called me after the meeting, told me I was nominated. So that's how it started for me. And then I started in Mass. We went secretary 2 years, vice president 2 years, president 2 years, and then past president 2 years. And then from that, I didn't have enough, so I went on to the board.
That's a challenge right now in a lot of associations. They have to go from 1 year serving in each of those roles to 2 years because they don't have enough people stepping up. And so that starts with the leaders figuring out how to get more people interested and excited to get involved. And I predict I do have a crystal ball. I got a crystal ball for Burke for his podcast, and I got a crystal ball for a KADPF. Chris probably is leaving his board position, but he's going to stay wildly involved with the organization, and he is going to see the double size and growth, and he's going to see active board members and people participate in the way they need to, because I met a lot of his board members virtually, and many of them are like Chris, and they all want the same result. And if you put a bunch of people together rowing a boat together, it's going to move the way that it needs to move. So that's my prediction is it's going to work out amazingly, and we get some more activity in the chat section. Some of the stuff is showing up private, so I'm trying to figure out who they are, but I see Matt Oliver said, we have been having that problem. Oh, this is an old question. We have a problem with keeping good people. And when we have a hard time filling the position, we seem to lose it in the budget. And in the suggestion that you've survived without that person, you don't need them when they need to put the money in other places. That happens a lot. That's the do more with less mindset that I hate and that I talk about. And I try to tell people doing their best with less, because if you get put in that position where you become short-staffed and you still get the work done, there's something called burnout that happens. But top level people just see that budget line item disappear and work still gets done. They just say, oh, the work's still getting done, but we don't think about this thing that's really big, which is mental health. And then these look like they might be Greg's. That is an excellent point, Josh. Go to the community and anything to get high school kids, even junior high school kids interested in the trades. Love that K-12 pros keeps the knowledge and mentorship, et cetera, in place. Skill trades keeps the world moving. And then I learned about Josh a couple of years ago. Highly recommend. I could use more of those. I can always use more of those. That wasn't me. It looks like I answered all of them, unless I'm missing something. I'm going to come back to this. But any close? This has been so. First of all, this has been an awesome podcast. That this has had, as Paul and I like to say, hot mic'd.
Yeah.
No preparation. Just this is how well the four of us know each other, and we've only met Paul. You and I met Burke in person once, and we've met Chris. You've met Chris once, and didn't get to spend. I don't even know if I told you this, Paul, but and Chris said it too. When we got to have dinner together, and afterwards he says, "Man, I wish I had more time with Paul."
I was going to mention it today. My biggest regret. You sat right next to me at that dinner. 31st best steakhouse in the United States, and I did not pick your brain more than I did.
Yeah. And that was some good steak.
Oh, please.
31st best.
Yeah.
Yep. No, we'll take. Hey, you guys play your cards right. I'm going to look for the 29th best. I'm going to skip right over.
I got to tell you, Josh, this is the first time we have this much chat coming in any of our podcasts. I think these two guys brought it on.
Oh yeah, no, this was the shortest release time. We had less than 24 hours release time, and the activity has been bouncing all over the place. I've got 25 or 26 chats. I didn't even get to the YouTube. I don't know that I got to YouTube and LinkedIn. I've been just trying to navigate through this private stuff. So this is good stuff. Anything to close this thing out? I mean, we've ran this thing pretty long, and which is great.
Two things I'd like to touch on, if it's all right.
Yep.
So the first being that it truly is a statewide organization. I was blown away the other day when Colby, Kansas, the people out in Colby, they're going to come to the conference. The person that I replaced as the media coordinator years ago was Mike Bassett from Deerfield. Josh, you can Google that one. Deerfield is literally out on the Colorado border. And Mike was heavily involved in the organization for many, many years. And the other thing I'd like to touch on is it's the whole retirement piece and retaining retired people and not losing that institutional knowledge. So I do have 3 people that have retired and came back to work for me, and I absolutely love it. We do have to pay a penalty to capers when we do that. So it can be challenging to offer them the competitive wage that they deserve because of that penalty piece. But one thing that I think we should really look at, and this could be something we have a conversation about here in 2 weeks in Missouri, is I'm in a very good position being that we're not far from the Missouri border at all. So, at the superintendent's level, principal's level, they'll retire on the Kansas side and then flip over to the Missouri side and double dip because they're not done working. But they're getting their retirement. I don't know why we don't do that in facilities. Why do we don't do that with our bus drivers? If somebody's retiring from us, hey, you know what? I know Liberty, Missouri is looking for bus drivers. Go talk to this guy over there. And then vice versa. If somebody's retiring on their side, send them our way. So let's share that knowledge, right?
Sounds like we need an office of K-12 pros in Kansas, Paul. A little sooner than we had planned.
There you go.
Expand to the Midwest.
We're on it.
Yeah. No. So this is the story of my life. And for those that haven't listened to this podcast, and that's why I tell it so often, because people, I had no idea. Paul is many things, but he did save my life. So I have to let this slide when this happens all the time, and why he's called more Paul. I got that nice highly recommendation, and then Greg follows up with, "We need to get Paul's knowledge curated to the masses."
There we go.
There's always a follow-up for more Paul. And you know something? I love it. Greg, you're 100% right. Stand by. I'm squeezing everything out of that. I'm a sponge, and I'm squeezing it all out of Paul's brain as much as I can and collecting it because, we're working on some really cool stuff. And this is something that you're going to experience, Chris, and I'm sure that we'll be able to, at some point, it's going to expand. Paul, talk about what Chris is going to see in Missouri, if you don't mind.
Oh, well, we're putting together a leadership course. It'll be 8 modules, using the book from which happens to be right here.
Of course it is.
Yes.
Mine will be on the floor.
It's Strength Finders.
Yeah.
Compton with Clifton. That will be our textbook. We're going to teach people how to work with their strengths. So many people focus on the weaknesses and spend so much time on what someone's doing wrong. So we're gonna flip that script a little. It's great. Josh liked this part. I don't know if any of you guys have taken the survey that's in the book, but there's 177 questions with no wrong answer.
Nice.
Because it's your feelings. It's not. There's no yes or no answer. And after taking that quick survey, you're given your 5 greatest strengths out of 34 that Don Clifton had identified when he was alive. So it's really exciting. It's working into our brains. Like I said, it's scary when we talk about Josh's brain, but hopefully the rest of us will be able to. I want to see Josh take the survey. I want to see how it comes out. See if they can figure out 5 strengths with what comes out of his brain. But we're going to run it over 4 months. The 8 courses, we're going to do 2 a month starting after the first of the year. We're going to do a little promo at the event in a couple of weeks, and then take registrations through the holiday period and give everybody their holidays, and then get to work in January, running the course over the 8 modules. So we're excited about that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was coming off of a massive high. I was in Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area. I just met with Brandon Chabola and his group, the Western Pennsylvania Facility Directors Association, did the keynote there. And I got in the car, I was all amped up, get in the car, and Charlie Brandon calls me, and he runs through this idea. And he says, "What do you think?" And I said, "I think it's great." And he says, "And I think Paul should be the teacher for it." And I said, "Professor Paul, perfect. That works for me." So this has been in action and worked on since May. There's been a lot of work on all parties involved. This is created by Missouri School Plant Managers, sponsored by TIPS, and hosted by K-12 Pros. So it's 3 groups coming together. Paul has been putting in the hard work to put together the 8 modules. And I know that the plan is Missouri is very, very, they very much want to share. Missouri grew by learning from the Midwest Facility Masters Conference and the group that happened up there with Wisconsin and Minnesota and Illinois and Iowa. And so they learned a lot from there and built their program. And now they want to expand their program. So I predict that this program maybe in Kansas at some point in time, and maybe in other places and states. Matt Oliver's already said, "Count me in. I hope to be in one of the first classes." So we might have to put it in for New Hampshire, Paul. But yeah, we got some cool stuff. We're running on all cylinders to bring more to the masses and to be able to get not just Paul but Chris and Burke and others collective knowledge, institutional knowledge and understanding, and grow. So, and it's going to start places like KADPF. So. It's been a good episode here. Anything we're missing?
We've been everywhere from conferences to colonoscopies.
Locked and loaded, yeah. KADPF to colonoscopy.
Yeah, it's like,
man. Yeah. Well, this is good, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you both, with Burke and Chris, for making the time. Paul, I just count on you and send you a meeting invite, and thankfully you're at one of your houses or in an office someplace and get online. But I thank you for joining, and this has been great. Can't wait to see a successful event and see it in person. That's always the best piece. And we'll all have to raise a glass for Paul we'll put Eddie in his spot and celebrate a successful event.
Right. He's a better shooter than me. That's why we're sending him.
Yeah.
No, guys, thank you so much for putting this all together. It's been amazing, and I love the conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
and that'll do it for this episode. And Paul will tell me, hey, do you have a shout out? Yes, I do. I have a shout out, but I'm going to leave the shout out that I was going to do for the next episode, because as I'm listening, thank you, Bobby Chavez. Great job, everyone. As I was listening to this whole podcast, Matt, thank you. Appreciate you too, my friend. As I was listening to this podcast and I was listening to the passion in Chris's voice, I was listening to the interest that Burke might have in joining the board of the KADPF. I might anonymously put his name in. I thought about the shout out should be for all of the unsung heroes that are in the trenches every day with a full-time job and families that give their time and energy, what they have left in their energy in the day, to providing professional development opportunities, networking, peer-to-peer opportunities, professional learning, aka the KADPFs around the country, because many of them are entirely volunteer organizations. They're giving their time. They're away from their families for days at a time. They're given nights, weekends, and holidays for board meetings. They're doing all of this to give something back. They all have a why for a reason. It's not for a resume or a business card. It's for making a difference and an impact. So for all of the unsung heroes that are volunteering their time for associations and organizations to make a difference for your peers, thank you. You make a huge difference. You make an impact, and you're leaving an amazing legacy of opportunity for future generations, which is what we need in this world today. So appreciate you all.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, that'll do it. Like, follow, share, 5-star ratings and reviews, not just for Be Awesome at FM, but for also Burke Jones, School Operations and Facilities, or School Facilities and Operations. I got it backwards. School Facilities and Operations podcast by Burke Jones. Guess what? If you got a complaint about Burke's podcast, send it to Paul too. You send them for my
I'll
podcast.
take 'em on.
We'll start a complaint department. Paul would be awesome, or Josh would be awesome, but those 5-star rating and reviews make all the difference in the world for us. That gets us rated, that gets us more exposure, and that just tells us we're doing a good job. And if we're not, send us an email. And Burke, how do people get a hold of you?
So the best way is probably LinkedIn. You can just follow me there. My email address, phone number is right there. That's the best way to reach me.
Yep. Awesome. Well, that's going to do it, guys. Appreciate you all, and have an awesome rest of your day. And see you in Kansas in a couple weeks.
Sounds good.
We'll
Bye,
see
guys.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everybody.